Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversatio Divina. I'm Avo Adorian, and today we'll be listening in on a conversation I had with Michael Stewart Robb of the Sanctus Institute for Theology and Spiritual Formation. Mike has released two books in the last few weeks: The Kingdom Among Us, The Gospel According to Dallas Willard, published by Fortress Press, and Something to Say, a comprehensive bibliography of Dallas Willard, published by Sanctus Press. We'll be covering the first book today. Mike is a Christian educator, a theologian, and a Dallas Willard scholar. He lives in Munich, Germany with his wife, Katerina, and two children. We'll be picking up the conversation at how and Mike came to know one another and how we came to work on Conversatio Divina together. Enjoy. Well, why don't we start there? Why don't we start with how we met and how we both got involved with Conversatio Divina and let people know just our involvement with everything.
How did we meet? I think we met through my wife, right?
That's
so
true.
You knew
Yes.
Katerina first?
Yes.
And then I think I needed a place to sleep.
And we should probably say how I met Katerina.
Oh,
I
how was that?
I met her at a Renovare Institute, which is like a 2-year long program of growing. I forgot what the thing was, but growing experientially closer to Jesus, or becoming like a 2-year experience of becoming like Christ. And that's where I met her. And yeah, you can take it from there.
Yep. And I needed a place to sleep when I came to LA once, and you offered your couch. I don't. Do you still have that couch?
I do not have that couch, and it was way too short. And Mike's, how tall are you? 6'4"?
6'4". No, I'm 6'2". I'm 6'2". But okay. I kind of remember it being short.
You project 6'4".
No, I don't. So I live in Germany. It's got a lot of tall people, so I don't feel extraordinarily tall where I live. And then we both knew Gary Moon, and Gary got us thinking about what a website would look like that was connected to the Martin Institute, and then called the Dallas Willard Center. Now it's got a bunch of different groups underneath it.
Well, you started working on it way before me, so.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of we needed to have a vision for it even before we went to the people who would build it for us and asked for prices. So we needed to sort of know what we were going to put on a website.
But you're already curating stuff for the Dallas Willard Center, correct? Like before that even?
I was doing a lot of curation, and this gets into what we were going to talk about. I was doing a lot of curation for my own research, PhD research. And at that point in time, Gary Moon, director of the Dallas Willard Center, was very interested in just collecting these things to sort of put into the library permanent collection there. And I didn't have any. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't share that with that sort of thing. So I very just sort of freely passed on what I had to them, and I think at that point we were starting to. I was working with him, and we were starting to, I guess, more systematically go after permissions for some of these audio and video resources, or for print resources, so that Westmont College, the Martin Institute, had the right to be able to pass things on to people, which they do if it's been granted to them for the purpose of education and research.
Yeah, and that's and the reason Mike reached out to me was because I'm a designer, and I don't know how I got picked, but before Mike reached out, I was just another Dallas Willard enthusiast. That was,
And a designer.
and a designer. And what I like to say is, I know a lot about Dallas Willard, not as much as Mike, obviously, and not as much as a lot of people. And I'm a good designer, but I'm not the best designer. But I think those two things overlapped enough where maybe I was called on, maybe, but I don't know. But the project found me, and it was really cool, kind of serendipitous. It was, and one of the just a really fun thing to have been a part of the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Anything else?
I mean, no. You and I, hopefully this is not the last project we're working on. Hopefully that documentary idea on Dallas Willard also comes to fruition.
Well, first, before the book, I guess, why the interest in Dallas Willard? You've got your PhD in Dallas Willard, and now you've written 2 books about him. So why so much interest in him?
Well, the first and most easy to answer is I was just captured by some of his writing and then also his speaking. I'm old enough to have met Dallas Willard a couple times, and I just thought this is good stuff. But I was very interested in theology, very interested in trying to understand, what is good theology, really historical theology, everything from Moses to the latest stuff that comes out, and Dallas was one of those voices, and I suppose the real interest for me when it really became very, very serious was after I started to read his philosophical articles, which I think I probably was reading him for 10 years before I really finished one of his philosophical articles.
I think, well, I don't know. I haven't really asked anyone else, but in terms of like the philosophical stuff, I don't know of anyone in the Christian circles, I guess, that reads those or even looks at them. I know they were up there.
They are. I mean, Dallas was very inspirational for a fairly large group of Christian philosophers / theologians, and some of them, like J.P. Moreland, actually have a name, but others may not have a name or publish many books. But those people have been reading his stuff for a long time.
The book is titled Something to Say, and it's a comprehensive bibliography of literally everything Dallas has done.
Doesn't that sound exciting?
So, so I mean, maybe it's stupid to ask, but what's the book about? In your words, I guess.
In my words, it is. It's like you're somebody who likes Dallas Willard, and you've read the books that you know are out there, and you've listened to him, and you've read an article here or there, and then you have this friend who's like a real nerd, and he just sort of puts together this book for you that has everything in it that you need to know where to read or listen next. And should you be working at a university or writing a book or needing a paper to turn in or something like that, all of the historical data and where you find this stuff is just all in the book. So I'm that nerdy guy who did all that stuff. so that other people who aren't so nerdy can benefit from it.
Yeah, maybe we should say a word about how you've organized the topics too. Like it's not just in there. I think you've got it broken down by philosophy, articles, lectures, like right.
Yeah. No, here's the book, and I have basically done sort of written things, which are the ones that have been published, and then you have the audio and video things in the back. It's maybe 1/3 written, published things, and 2/3 audio and video materials, and it's a little bit mixed between the philosophy and then the theology, but I do try to break things up into groups, rather than just a sheer chronological, like this is the very first thing that we have from him way back in 1964. And then there's the next and the next and the next. I do try to group them together a little bit, so that it's a little bit easier to get through. And obviously there's going to be a large group of people that have no interest in the critical reviews that Dallas wrote about other philosophical books. But for those who are, they can find them all in one spot.
Why did you write the book, and who did you write it for?
So I wrote it as a side effect of my formal research that I was doing on Dallas Willard. So in a sense, I'm writing this, think of it as like I'm writing The Kingdom Among Us, that other book that you mentioned. And in the process, I'm trying to make sense of all these different sources of Dallas. And so I'm starting to sort of put them in order and get the right dates on them and get the right titles on them. And then once the one was done, the other one was basically done as well, because I was doing it on the side. And the real question is, why did I publish the book, and who is it for? And we decided to publish this as a way to help people find some motivation to give to our project here, Sanctus Institute in Europe. And I suppose because also at some point in when you have somebody like Dallas who writes a lot, you have to do something like this. You have to sort of put it all together. And like I said, I'm just nerdy enough about it that I could do it in kind of a detailed way, keep it, try to make it as historical as possible. And, if Dallas hangs on for another 100 years of people reading him, this will be incredibly helpful for those later generations who just don't have the access to things like we do. Early on, I'm reading websites and that, trying to find dates and titles for things, digging, surfing the internet, looking for different things. Obviously, those websites don't stick around forever, as well as the cassettes that we try to dig up, or CDs or whatever. At some point, their expiration date is up, and so just trying to preserve that stuff.
So you've tracked down a lot of this stuff. So tell us a bit more about the search and where it led you.
It led me. Most people don't know that a Google search, actually there's numbers at the bottom, but those are the other pages, and you can kind of go to like page 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, and that's one of the places where these searches would lead me. Just trying to find anything old or just not high on the search terms that mention Dallas Willard and some sort of cassette, tape, talk, church. We're still finding forwards to books books with forwards that he wrote, because he would write them and send them off, and nobody knew he did it. And so just digging up that stuff, I met a lot of really interesting people who knew Dallas back when he wasn't famous, and they were perhaps people that, heard he was speaking at this or that church in LA and drove across the city to go see him. And he's not, he hasn't published any books. He's just somebody that they know has something to say. And so they put in the effort to go listen to him, and then go wherever you would go, back at the church or whatever, to buy the cassette tapes that they would sell of the thing. And then they, keep them in their closet for 30 years.
I was one of those people that would drive across LA to go hear him speak.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I just lived on the wrong continent.
But my uncle was a pastor, and late in life he got into Dallas Willard, and I think he read Spirit of Disciplines, and he's like, and Dallas was local in LA area, so he asked, he was just wondering out loud to me. He said, "Oh, I wonder if he'd come speak at our church." And he had a church in the inner city. He said, "I wonder if he'd come speak at our church for $50. That's all we could afford to pay him." Mm-hmm. And I kind of like laughed about it because I thought that's a very low amount for Dallas. But after my uncle died, I saw Dallas speak at another church in Glendale where he didn't take any money. So I think he would have done it. It just...
He wasn't in it for the money.
Yeah. So any interesting characters you ran into while you were doing this search?
I wasn't thinking I would talk about this person, but I knew that Dallas in LA was kind of in the Presbyterian church circuit, and I was trying to track down tapes. Like, one of the things we've never found are the original recordings that became Hearing God. We all know, well, I don't know that we all know, but that book was basically a series of talks that somebody transcribed, and then Dallas made a book out of it, which is actually the story of most of his books. We've never found those tapes. They were done in a Presbyterian church, and I was just Googling Dallas Willard, Presbyterian, whatever, and came across this lady, actually, who had asked Dallas to speak at her Presbyterian church. Her name is Ann Hilborn. And actually, I don't know if I knew this, but I wrote to her, and her husband, Scott Hilborn, is listed at the beginning of the Divine Conspiracy as somebody who had helped Dallas with reading it and commenting on it. And so I wrote to Anne. Sometimes I call people because I find that's easier. And Anne was thrilled to talk to me, and just really, I guess we could say, we really hit it off. And Anne has since then, I'm going to say this is 2014, 2015. Anne has since then become a big supporter of mine. She goes around and helps open doors for me in various ways. I've been to their house a number of times. I've met Scott, the guy mentioned in the Divine Conspiracy. He's a great guy as well. So, and they've passed cassettes on to me, or open doors for me. So I think there's just really a lot of really interesting characters like that who are quite unknown. Dallas touched their lives in a very significant way, and they don't go on to write books like, I don't know, Trevor Hudson, who we both know, Avo. He writes books, and he's a great guy, a great teacher. And we all know, his, well, I don't know. You can hear his stories of him interacting with Dallas, but there's all sorts of people who have never gotten an opportunity to tell their stories with Dallas, and whose lives were touched in just as profound of a way as Dallas touched somebody like Trevor's.
It's great. Dallas had a lot to say, and what? Go ahead.
Oh no! You've got a
What's that? You were
checklist
gonna say
there.
something?
You every time I stop talking, you go in and you look at your checklist to make sure that you could ask the next question.
Maybe I shouldn't. Yeah, that's a amateur interviewer.
We'll work on that.
Yeah. Dallas had a lot to say, and this book tells you where to find it. You say that in the book, you say that only a crazy person would consume all of it.
Yeah.
So have you consumed all of it?
Pretty close to that. For my research, I read everything that he had published. And that wasn't that difficult, to be honest, because I'd read the 5 main books, and then it was mainly about getting through the philosophical articles, and then he's basically got two books in philosophy that you read, and then you can say you've read everything. The audio is a different story, and I've combed through it all, partly because when we put this stuff online, which I'm in charge of, at least for a conversatio, I feel like it needs people, audio people, the cassette guy at the back of the church who's recording this. They make all sorts of mistakes, and you just have to find those and get them out of there so that we actually have a copy of the recording that's as good as possible for future generations. It's just sort of work that other people don't have to do. So yes, I have read a lot of it. I wouldn't recommend that. I listen to a lot of it while I'm jogging. I don't know if that helps anybody.
Where can one find the book?
Yeah, so that is something I'm very excited about. So the way you find the book is that you check out our institute in Europe called Sanctus, the Sanctus Institute. We call it a European Institute for Theology and Spiritual Formation. And we're over here trying to help Europeans and European churches thrive in the area of spiritual formation, which really on the level that we're at is really know what that even means. We just don't have great teaching about it here at all, much less churches that are sort of strongly shaped by it. So, and this is why we wrote this book, or why we put it into paper, was to try to help people find some motivation to give to this charity, because it's not the sort of thing that can just exist on its own. So if you go to the website, you go to tab like Friends, so sanctus.institute/friends. Avo will put it onto the screen right now. Right, Avo?
Right
there
now.
It is. Yep. See that? See how
is.
Avo did that? He's pointing to it. You'll see how to get this. It's basically a minimum donation of $25 or €20, depending on where you live, because we can only really ship to people who are in the US or in Europe at the moment. And if you give a donation, a minimum, then you get the book sent to you for free. And even better, if you can be a monthly donor, that really keeps us going here and helps us not really write more books like this, but put together groups that we can sort of bring European Christians together and do our YouTube channel to reach more people with these ideas and thoughts. So that's where you get the book.
And inside the book, you've got a little logo next to each article or video.
There's a few little. there's a few cool features that we put in. Like, for example, if I can put it in here, there are little check boxes here. So you can kind of keep track of what you've read or listened to. And I think that's really cool to be able to know where you've been in the Dallas Willard world. And another thing, again, little tiny black marks. I don't know if they're going to be visible here very well, but those indicate when a resource is available on none other than Conversatio Divina, and that means it's available for free. For the audio and video stuff, an overwhelming majority has a little black thing beside it. And so you can get all that stuff for free thanks to the folks at Westmont, and the Martin Institute, and Conversatio Divina.
So what's the next project you'll be working on?
Yeah, more bibliographies, I hope. I mean, I figure you publish one, it's hard to stop. I'd like to do a Dallas Willard intro book, something that you would give to people, in their first year of seminary. This is what this guy was about. Maybe one that brings his philosophy and his theology together. I've got a first chapter written, but there's a few other book projects that are in front, and a Dallas Willard documentary. Avo and I are on the development team for that, and we've got something really good. And in all honesty, if there's a donor or a funder listening to this who wants to talk with us about that and make it happen, please.
Thank you. Michael Stewart Robb.
C'est moi. All right.